Hi, this is Tim Lightfellow in the Kingdom of Ontier. Today I'm discussing straightening a hardwood arrow shaft. I just did another video on straightening standard shafts, which would be like cedar, spruce, that sort of thing. This one is the particular wood I'm dealing with is hickory. So there's a different process to it. The basics are the same. I'm using, in this case, a shaft tamer model arrow straightener. Notice the groove that's nice and smooth in the middle so it won't damage the shaft. And I'm using Apple Archery arrow checker or arrow tester. I like this one because it has the wheels that spin nice and smoothly. So again, there's no risk of them gouging or damaging the shaft. Other options for this, there is a brand called Ace that makes, I think they call it a roller straight, which is a handheld one that you would rub against the shaft. You can use a large diameter socket as long as it's smooth. You don't want any burrs that are going to cause gouges in the shaft. That is obviously less expensive alternative to this tool, which was, I believe, around $50 to $60. For this tool, I don't recall the price, to be honest. Options to this are, if you have good eyes, you can just look down the shaft and see where it's curved. If you have a nice flat surface, you can roll a shaft on a flat surface to see where it's bent away from touching the surface. So there are definitely alternatives to going out and spending the money on these tools. I've made enough arrows and bolts that I've found these to be very useful and help me get through the process of straightening faster. So for me, it's paid off, but that has a lot to do with volume of shafts I've straightened. Okay, so I'm going to move the camera down to show you how the checker and the straightener work. So first off, let me get this centered to the camera. The idea of this is you put the shaft on and you can start at one end or the other or middle, wherever you want to start. And the idea is you spin this and you look to see, what I do is I look at two spots. I look at the ends to see if they're wobbling up and down. And I look in the middle and I align it either with the edge of the logo or the edge of the tester, and that helps me see if the gap between them is changing, which gives me an idea that there's a spot that needs to be straightened. Now in this one, I happen to have found one that should be fairly obvious to the camera right about here. You'll notice that it is a pretty significant bend. I have an astigmatism in each eye, so looking down the shaft isn't always great for me. This tool helps me find bends more easily, so that's why I use it. If this were a softer wood, what I could do is I could put the curve upward like it is now, take this and press down gently and rub it, or I can set this on the table. I can get this to where the curve is downward, and then what I would do is press against this as I roll it, so you'd see this flexing a little bit. The idea being you press against the curve to straighten it out. In this case, being hickory, if I try that, it's not going to straighten. The wood is too hard. So what I have to do is I have to heat it up. So what I'm going to be doing is using a heat gun. This one has two settings. What I prefer to do, and understand this is only my second set of hickory shafts, so there are others with more experience, and they may have advice different than this, but what I've found works for me is I put it on the low setting first, so I don't shock the wood or heat the wood too fast. And I'll do a couple passes with it on low before I turn it up to try and get heat through the shaft. I'm going to mute my mic while I do this because I don't figure it's going to sound great on a recording. So one moment. Now, to be clear, this is about a 65 to 70 pound spine, so it's going to take a lot of force to get this to flex. And you'll notice that because of where it's at, I was having trouble keeping it on the straightener while I was heating it up. So I just took it off and put one end against the table to keep it steady while I spun it. And that helped me to be able to get it heated up. It's warm in the middle. And again, I'm going to keep my hands a little ways apart from each other. If I put them right up close, I'm more likely to break the shaft. So I need to leave some gap, and I'm going to put some pressure on this, and I'm going to go back and forth. And again, because it is such a heavy spine, I know it's going to take several passes. If this were a lighter spine, I would be probably doing 1 or 2 passes at a time to try to see if that's accomplished the goal or not. What I'm feeling, frankly, is it's probably not warm enough. So I'm going to mute this and heat it some more. Okay, so when I'm doing this, I'm looking for it. It shouldn't burn me when I touch it, but it should be at a point where it's kind of uncomfortable to touch because that means it's heated all the way through. And it's close to that now. The joy of working on a metal table, it's probably creating lots of fun sound on the recording. Okay, so it's better, but it's still there. Again, it takes a lot of more force than I'm used to having to do because I'm used to working on things that are more like 30 to 40 pound spine rather than 65, 70 pound. So it takes me a little while to remember, oh yeah, push harder on this one. Okay. What I'm seeing is there's a little bit back here, which may or may not be cooled down already. And I think that's the best I get right now. So the other piece, yep, okay. The other piece about doing hardwoods is once you heat up a section and you straighten that section, you then set this one aside and let it cool. Because if that's still warm and you're doing a section over here and you're pressing where it's warm, you can put a bend right back into it. So you want to warm up one small section, straighten it, set it aside, let it cool. So works faster. You kind of get in a rhythm if you're doing 6 or 12 at one time, because you can do a section on one, set it aside, grab the next shaft, and work your way through all 12, let them cool, go back through it. On the first set of these I did, which were a lighter spine, it took about 8 passes before all the shafts were straight. So definitely requires a little more patience and a little more effort to get the hardwood straight. That should cover everything. Thank you for watching.